Hi, my name's Holly and I'm a printmaker and mixed media artist from Hertfordshire in the UK. Today I'm going to experiment with some everyday items that you can use to create texture with your gel plate. You can use them as backgrounds to layer on top of or on collages. I hope it inspires you to go and create too. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy what you see, and check out my other videos for more inspiration, ideas and tips. Okay, so today I'm going to be creating lots of texture with my gel plate using lots of things that you can find really cheaply or even in your house. So first thing is some string. I've got this, it's kind of the stuff that you get like oranges and clementines in. So that's quite good for printing with. This is a bit of old lace curtains, net curtains. You can usually get these in charity shops and things. So this one's just got a really interesting pattern on it. Bit of bubble wrap. We all get things delivered these days in bubble wrap, so that's usually quite easy to come by. And then a bit of what some people call punchella, but it's the stuff that they punch sequins out of. So this gives really good effect as well. So you can kind of use these things to create texture on your plate. So today I'm going to use a selection of my favorite colors, so it'll be blue, purple and pink, with maybe a little bit of green thrown in, but we'll see how we get on. So yeah, that's basically what we're going to be doing today, creating texture on a gel plate. So the gel plate I'm going to be using today is the A5 one, and let's get started. So to begin with, I'm going to use this punchella on the plate, and I'm going to use a darker colour. This acrylic paint is like a heavy body acrylic. I normally get this from the range in the UK, but I'm sure there are other ones available. So it's like a turquoise or teal blue. So I'm just going to spread this across the plate. And I always have a bit of paper to clean off my roller on as well to one side. So I'm just going to place these down onto the plate. I've got a couple of them. And then use a bit of scrap paper to kind of take any excess paint off. It's kind of interesting in itself. And peel them off. I can probably take a print just from that actually. So just going to place the paper onto the plate and smooth it down. It's a really interesting pattern, that one. And you can see there's still a little bit of pattern on the plate, so it may, it's probably mostly dried onto the plate. So I'm going to use like a lighter contrasting colour to pull the rest off with. So we'll go with a bit of light blue. And just spread that across the plate. Don't really need that much paint, remember. That's the biggest mistake that people make when they're gel printing, is just to use too much paint. You really don't need that much. But with these paints, because they're acrylic, they do dry quite quick, so you do need to work quickly. Think about what you're doing before you do it, and then you'll be ready with all your paper ready to one side. So I'm just going to smooth this down so it almost sticks onto the plate, so that when I pull it off, it's going to pull all of the pattern up. You can always check the corner to see what it's doing. But yeah, that's quite an interesting texture with what was left on the plate. And you can see it's pretty much pulling everything off the plate. So it kind of cleans it off for the next print. There you go. So that's quite a good one. Another interesting pattern in the background. Okay, so next I'm going to have a go at using bubble wrap. Again, I'm going to use like a darker colour, so I'm going to go with a bit of dark purple here. Again, not too much paint. This is again another one of the ones that I get from the range, sort of heavier body opaque paint. See, it's not really see-through at all. This one's quite heavy. So just spread the paint across the plate and clean off your roller, and then I'm just gonna lay it down on the plate, and what it's going to do is pull off a bit of the paint of the plate rather, into hopefully an interesting pattern. Yeah, there you go. Now, you can take a print straight away, or you can allow it to dry. I think I'm going to go with, it's not too warm today, so I'm going to go with taking a print straight away and see what happens. So just press down on the plate and smooth it down and give it a minute or so to just pull all the paint onto the paper, or as much of it as you can. Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, these are great for collage and all sorts of different things. You can use it as a background for something else. But it's really interesting the way the plastic's gone onto the plate and left marks behind. Interesting pattern. And I don't know if you can see, but there is still something on the plate. So I think I'm going to try another lighter colour. So this is a different one. This is a Pebeo acrylic paint. And it's a little bit see-through, this one. So it should still pull anything left up. So we'll see what happens. So again, just spread it evenly across the plate. And you can use more than one colour at this point. So I could have done like half the plate in one colour and half in another, or just mix the paint across the plate. There we go. I'm just going to place another piece of paper down now. You almost want it to stick to the plate this time. So just give it a sec to just make sure that it's pulled everything up. And I think that might have done it. You can always check the corner. You can see it's pulling everything up that's left behind. That is it. Let's see if we can just leave it a couple of seconds on, because I can still see some marks on the plate then. It'd be good to try and get them up. It's pulling a little bit. You can see some of the marks left behind on here, but it's very subtle. Yeah, you can see a few there. Okay, so there's another interesting pattern or background that you can use for something else. Okay, I'm going to use some string next. So I think for this one I will use some green. Just going to spread that out across the plate. You've got a bit too much paint, which I think I probably do. You can always roll it off onto the paper next to it. And the more you gel print, the more you'll kind of get a feel of what too much paint is or not enough paint is. And sometimes it can depend on how warm it is as well as to how much paint you should use. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just put this down onto the plate in no particular way, just see what kind of patterns we get from it. So I think I'm going to use one of the bits that I used before and print on top of that and see what happens. So if you can line it up and just press that down, all I'm going to do right now is just pull off excess paint. And use your hands to just get between all the bits of string so that you get like as close an image to the string as you can. And if you're not sure if you've done it close enough, you can always check to see what's happening. Now that's working. There's a bit more there. Yeah, interesting. So that's created that pattern. So it's quite nice with that bright, vibrant pink coming through. So I'll put that to one side. So when you pull the string off, you'll see that you might not be able to see very well, but it's left like a really interesting pattern on the plate. So what I'm going to do is just let that dry off. What I'm going to probably do though is give it a bit of a helping hand with my heat gun, just to make sure it's dried. So I want it to dry onto the plate. The reason I want it to dry is because when I put the next layer on, I don't want it to wipe off what's on there already. So I'm going to put another layer of paint on the background to pull this off. And it's better to not use the hottest setting on your heat gun and not to leave it on one area of the plate for too long, because you don't want to melt your plate. But a hairdryer would also work too. So if you want to check the sides of what you've done just to see if it has dried, that seems dry to me. So what I'm going to use now is this metallic blue paint to pull off what's left behind. So I'm just going to put a bit of that on. In fact, I might just use a bit of the pink as well. There we go. So I'm going to do the pink first and then going into the blue. And we'll see what kind of thing this leaves behind. So before it dries too quick, I'm just going to get a bit of paper and put it down onto the plate. And just press it right down and make sure that it's almost dried onto the plate. At this point, you can actually use the heat gun, again, not on its highest setting, and just go over your plate and just make sure that the paper is really like dry. You want it to dry onto the plate so that when it comes up, it pulls everything off your plate for you. Okay. And then you can check the corner and see what it's doing. You can see it's pulling what looks like everything off there. Now this may have worked better if I'd used more contrasting colours, but you know, it's interesting, it's still interesting. So you could be more, if you didn't want to be as abstract with the string, you could do a more definite pattern. You can also stick the pieces of string onto a piece of card like this, and then you can use that almost like a stamp onto the plate. So that's another way of using string. Okay. Next I'm going to use this. It's like the netting that you get like oranges in from the supermarket. So again, this makes really interesting patterns on your plate. So I am going to go with some dark pink this time. So I'm just going to put a little bit of paint onto my plate. Might even have used a bit too much there. Okay, so now I'm going to just put my netting down onto the plate. Bit of scrap paper just to press that down a bit. because my piece isn't that big, I'm just going to put it down in another area too. There we go. So you can pull a print straight away now if you want to. In fact, you could just print over the top of something you've already done, just to kind of get a contrast. So let's see how this works. I'm just going to push paper down on top. You almost want it to stick again. Here we go, that's quite interesting. Leaves an interesting pattern behind. I mean, you could let it dry and then go over the top with a different colour like we did in one of the previous examples, but that's mostly how it works. There is a little bit on there, but I'm just going to leave it on there for the next print and see what happens. Okay, so the last one that I'm going to use is this one here. So it's like net curtains or something. It's got this kind of interesting floral pattern on it. So we're going to see how this one comes out. Just going to get a new bit of roll-off paper because my last piece has got a bit full of paint. And we're going to use this mauve colour. I tend to use really dark colours to begin in the first layer and then lighter contrasting colours in the second layer. Just partly because it's easier to see if there's a greater contrast to show you. But I kind of like the contrasting colours though anyway. So I'm just going to roll this paint out on my plate. And then I'm just going to place this down on the plate like that. Now you can use a little bit of scrap paper just to press that down. Make sure it's leaving a really good pattern on the plate. Be careful not to let the net curtain move on the plate, otherwise you'll end up with sort of a blurred image, but then maybe that's what you want, so it depends on what you want to achieve. Okay. Hopefully you can see this on the camera, but it's left behind a really nice pattern here. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to let this dry onto the plate. So just to help us along, I'm going to use my heat gun a little bit. Let's see if I can get that bit off. Yeah. Just make sure it's fully dried onto the plate. Okay, when you're happy that you think it's dried, which I think it has, you can then put a lighter contrasting colour on. I always say to use a contrasting colour just because, like I say, you can see it better. So I'm going to use this lilac in the background, or pastel blue I think it calls it. So you just want to put a little bit of paint on. And then roll that out onto your plate. Roll it out evenly across the plate. Okay, and then I'm just going to get a piece of paper and place it on like this. Now this one, you really want it to, again, so pick up all the paint on the plate. So you almost want it to dry onto the plate. Have to be a little bit patient, which is not something I'm very good at. So we'll go with a bit of help from the heat gun. Okay, and then you can check the corner just to see it is definitely pulling everything up. Oh, it isn't yet. There we go. It's a really nice, like, stitched look. I really like this. And obviously the more interesting types of net curtain that you can find will give you different effects. So it's well worth having an experiment. You could use that in a background, or you could cut it up and collage it, all sorts of different things. So I hope you've enjoyed my video today, and it's given you some ideas on some textures and backgrounds that you can use and create using your gel plate and just using everyday items. If you did like it, please comment, like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye.